Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have. What's up, everybody, and good morning here from Tampa Bay, Florida. We've got some interviews to react to. Everybody enjoyed this when we did it with Elaine and Amber's lawyers and talked about the do's and don'ts and lawyer interviews post-trial. Some slander has been thrown Johnny Depp's way by, I don't know, Amber's supporters or whoever it is. I don't know if it was her lawyers or herself or whoever it was, saying basically it's despicable for them taking a victory lap after the trial has come to a conclusion, which is not great when your lawyers have been doing a bunch of interviews prior to, and it seems like her lawyers tried to be the first one to get interviews. But we've got a couple interviews to react to today. And I saw some people in the chat earlier saying they haven't caught the interviews yet. Well, you're in luck. We are going to be playing those interviews and reacting to them on this live today. We have two interviews we are going to watch today and react to. And you'll notice, similar to Amber's lawyers, a lot of, I don't want to call them crutches, but a lot of certain buzzwords these lawyers want to make sure they use in the interviews. And they use them over and over again. And they kind of have themes to these interviews that they want to make sure they hit. So we're going to watch these two interviews. Then we're going to answer some questions at the end. I will break them down and give my reaction to them live, of course, as always. And then tonight, I heard it's supposed to be a little bit of a longer interview tonight at 8 o'clock for Ben Chu and probably Camille Vasquez. But we will probably do a live tonight talking a little bit more about this. So if you want to catch us again, probably tonight around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But for now, we're going to jump into a couple of these interviews. If you haven't already, hit the like button on this video for more Johnny Depp, Amber Heard content. Seems like it's still what everybody is hungry for. So we're going to keep bringing it. We are going to focus on what you all want to listen to. And follow me here at Tragos Law on Twitter and Instagram. That's how we get a lot of this stuff done. People want to know, what's going on in this case? What's going to happen post-trial? And we actually learned some things in these interviews about what might happen. Will there be a settlement? Will there be bankruptcy? So there's still more to discuss. And as long as there's more to discuss, we will do it on this channel as always. So let's get to the first interview. I have no idea what order they're in. I don't think it really matters because we're going to watch them together and talk about them. They're both pretty short, so.
A trial watched by millions around the world, ending in a stunning verdict in favor of Johnny Depp. Last week, a jury found that Depp's ex-wife, Amber Heard, had defamed him in a 2018 Washington Post op-ed. She's been ordered to pay more than $10 million in damages. Heard, who plans to appeal, won just one of three claims in her count.
I'm going to jump up to here so we can just get to the actual interview.
And joining us now are Johnny Depp's lawyers, Camille Vasquez and Benjamin Chu. And a quick disclosure, my husband has done consulting work for the Depp legal team, but not in connection with this interview. So with that aside,
oh, that was a funny disclosure. I missed that the first time. Her husband has done some consulting with the Depp legal team. That's really funny. All right.
We ask you, did you speak to your client right after the verdict? What was his reaction in the moment?
I think just an overwhelming sense of relief. I was speaking with another friend of ours, a mutual friend of Johnny's and ours, and he said, I haven't seen Johnny smile like that in 6 years.
The weight of the world is off of his shoulders. He's got his life back.
As you well know, the law does.
So most people want to know, what does the client think? What does the client feel? They asked about Amber Heard. She felt like she let all these women who are victims down. Johnny Depp, just like he was testifying to a trial, this shouldn't come as a surprise. The weight of the world is off his shoulders. He feels like he's been able to tell his truth, and the world has now seen that he is innocent of what she accused him of.
Does not favor a plaintiff like Johnny Depp in a defamation case like this. The burden is very high. The threshold is high, and he crossed it. Frankly speaking, were you stunned at this victory, Ben?
Well, we had ultimate confidence in Johnny and the jury and the facts of this case. And you can only hope that the jury will see it. And in this case, they did. And the verdict was overwhelmingly in his favor.
I should mention the jury did find Mr. Depp responsible for defamation for one of the statements made by his lawyer. It accused her essentially of staging a scene in furtherance of an abuse hoax. How do you square that finding with the rest of the verdict, Camille?
I think it's just the verdict is overwhelmingly positive for Johnny. And it was unanimous. There were 7 people that decided he was defamed.
Amber Heard's attorney.
So she dodged that question. If we're being unbiased here and we're listening to it and we're watching it, she dodged that question. Johnny's been believed, he's been vindicated, but I should mention he lost on one of the counts. How do you balance that? How do you justify that? How do you understand that? And Camille Vasquez said the verdict was overwhelmingly in favor of Johnny, unanimous, 7 people decided, but she didn't really kind of try to connect those two, which we've been trying to do, in the public here. And as I'm talking to you all, we're trying to figure out how they could come to this kind of a verdict. It doesn't sound like Johnny's lawyers have an answer either, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but they don't really, they could have taken that opportunity to say, I think the jury maybe misunderstood the facts, misunderstood the law. We don't think there was any evidence of that, but they didn't. Kind of took the high road, just kind of dodged the question. And we'll hear Ben Chu kind of condemn Elaine for how she has treated the jury in this post-trial interview process.
He was right here the day after the verdict, and she said the jury had not been permitted to see certain evidence that would have bolstered and verified Amber Heard's claims of abuse, in particular therapist notes. What is your response to that? And was there evidence that was suppressed?
So hold on. People are saying, why would they speculate? Well, they're speculating that people believe Johnny with their verdict. So it wouldn't be speculation to say they believed Amber, or at least something on Amber's side, for giving Amber $2 million. That's not a small amount of money. So it's not speculation. I hear everybody saying it's speculation, but they're speculating on why they sided in favor of Johnny, as all of us are, because we think they believed Johnny. So then why would they side with Amber? Because I don't think any of us think they really believed Amber or her statements or any of the evidence. So there's got to be a reason. So that's what you discuss in an interview. It's not evidence in court. So speculation is allowed in interviews. That's the whole point of interviews, I think.
For a valid legal reason that might have made a difference.
I think that was very disappointing to hear that, and to hear her impugn the character of the jury. And the evidence came in that should come in, and the judge was very fair to both sides.
In particular,
I agree with Ben Chu here. It was dirty pool for Elaine to act like the judge was on Johnny's side or suppressed evidence that should have come into trial. That was one of the worst parts to me of Elaine's interview. Ben Chu hit it on the head perfectly, that it was really sad that she did that, impugned the jury, basically making it seem like the judge wasn't fair to both sides. That's how the rules of evidence work, and Elaine knows that. And so I think Ben did a good job of hitting that answer right there.
The UK judgment. As we all know, Johnny Depp sued The Sun, a newspaper in the United Kingdom. He lost that case, the judge finding that claims by the newspaper that he was a wife beater were substantially true. Now, Amber Heard's lawyers say that judgment should have come into this court case. What say you?
Was a different process, right? And also Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in this case were the parties. They had different disclosure obligations. So we disagree. The overwhelming evidence that was presented in this case in Virginia far exceeded what was presented in the UK. And we believe the jury got it right.
As you know, this trial.
Another perfect answer. We took an hour and a half or 2 hours breaking this down and talking about this, but simply put, Amber Heard wasn't a party. It was a different process. It was a different jurisdiction. There was different evidence. We think more evidence came in this case. We think this process was more fair. Amber had to make a lot more disclosures in this case, and we won the case. Perfect answer as to what the difference between the UK and the US outcome was, and basically saying the judge made the right decision in keeping that verdict out because it's a different process. But they didn't comment on judicial rulings or saying this wasn't fair or that judge was totally biased in the UK and not fair, which they could have. And a lot of people probably in this chat would have agreed with them. But that is not the way you do these post-trial interviews as lawyers. The way Camille Vasquez just answered that question was perfect. She didn't impugn or she wasn't nasty to any judge, whether it was in the US or the UK. And that's the way you should answer these questions.
Was very closely watched. Social media certainly took off in a way that we've seen high-profile trials before, but this is the social media age. Do you believe the jurors saw any of that, were swayed by any of that?
No, I don't think there's any reason to believe that the jurors violated their oath. And again, that suggestion was disappointing to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Amber Heard's lawyer said so. She said it would have been unavoidable because it's on TikTok, it's on social media. I mean, in the old days, you'd tell the jury before they went out, don't read newspapers, don't watch the evening news. Now it's everywhere.
It is everywhere, but at the same time, they were admonished every single night. And they had a tremendous amount of respect, I think, for the court and the process, and they were doing the best that they could.
Yeah. Support for.
I actually like Camille Vasquez's answer better than Benchu, but I get what he's saying, and he's right. He wants to say that, you know, we trust the jury. We don't think they do it. I can't believe Elaine would ever say that they violated their oath, which is fine. And Elaine should not have said that. She should not have said, the jury, you know, they looked at it. Camille's answer was actually perfect. Better than Benchu's, better than Elaine Brederhoff. Camille Vasquez said, I think they had a lot of respect for the court. They had a lot of respect for their oath. They were admonished not to do it every day. And I think they did their absolute best. I would agree with that. And you heard me say that throughout the trial. But even their absolute best was probably not perfection, not hearing even a little ounce of something about the trial from somebody or from social media or from the news or something. So I don't think it was a 0, like Benchu said, and I don't think it was they were diving into TikTok every night and that's how they made their decision. Like Elaine said, I'm with Camille Vasquez on this one, that I think they did their absolute best. But it's just interesting to hear different lawyers explain it different ways. And I would kind of be closer to down the middle like Camille Vasquez was.
Johnny Depp online was exponentially greater than for Amber Heard. Just one example on TikTok, the Justice for Amber Heard hashtag has 27 million views. Justice for Johnny Depp, 20 billion. Heard's attorneys have suggested that
27 million to 20 billion in favor of Johnny Depp.
Perhaps this is because of an orchestrated campaign on behalf of Johnny Depp. Do you know anything about an online campaign on behalf of Johnny Depp?
That is utterly baseless. In fact, very early in the case, the prior Chief Judge White had thrown out a count in the counterclaims that related to that. It was absolutely absurd and baseless.
And you know for a fact.
That's great procedure and what's happened in this case already, that they actually had a claim dealing with that social media smear campaign, and it was thrown out, meaning there was no evidence, even viewed in the light most favorable to Amber Heard, that could prove that case. I love that Benchu had that answer ready.
That neither he nor his agents nor anyone tried to in some way pay for or otherwise encourage kind of social media activity.
Categorically false.
Why do you think the jury didn't believe her? Because when you look at the verdict, it really comes.
For all of you angry about speculation, this is what they're doing throughout the whole interview. Speculating on what the jury did outside the courtroom, speculating on why the jury didn't believe her, speculating on why the verdict came down the way that it did. All these questions are for them to speculate, but they're basing it off of what they did in the trial, and that's okay.
Down to that. The issue was, is what she's saying true or false? And by their verdict, they said it's false.
Well, my sense is that it had a lot to do with accountability, that Johnny owned his issues. He was very candid about his alcohol and drug issues. He was candid about some unfortunate texts that he wrote. And I think it was a sharp contrast to Ms. Heard, who didn't seem, or at least the jury may have perceived, that she didn't take accountability for anything.
As you know, this has been closely watched, and in the Me Too context, some people have wondered whether there is a larger resonance to this trial, whether it sends a message. Do you see any larger message beyond the case you tried?
No, I mean, frankly, we don't. We're here to talk about the case that we tried, right? We encourage all victims to come forward, have their day in court, which is exactly what happened in this case.
Do you feel confident in your...
So this is based on them saying, Elaine and Amber's lawyers saying that it was a big step back for women, for domestic abuse victims. And Camille Vasquez says, no, it's not about the bigger picture. It's about the individual case. We don't try, if it was a class action or if it was some big federal case against the government, then maybe there's a bigger issue at hand. But this is about an individual case, an individual victim. And we were fighting for him, and we want to give a voice, and we want all victims to be out there, and we want all victims to come forward. But this was not a fight against domestic violence victims. No way.
Appeal, Ms. Heard does intend to appeal.
we feel very confident that there are no errors that would justify any kind of successful appeal.
And then finally, I have to ask you, not
They're not worried about an appeal. They don't think there were any errors that are going to justify an appeal. Great answer.
since OJ, perhaps, has the trial been so closely watched and the lawyers become famous people in their own right? What has that been like for you, particularly you, Camille? I think I saw someone on social media get a tattoo of your face on their body, which is weird.
It's been overwhelming and surreal, but to the extent that I can encourage young women to stay in school and maybe inspire them to pursue a legal career, then it's all worth it.
Well, I understand.
I mean, what an answer, right? Like if that doesn't just melt your heart, I don't know what does. First off, she doesn't say that it's weird that somebody got a tattoo on her of her face on them, which is pretty weird. In the interview said it, but she was being nice to that person who obviously is a fan of Camille, right? And then she wants to be an example to young women out there who want to be lawyers. I mean, it's just the best. I mean, it's just, these are the types of things, like she's a normal, nice human being. You can just tell from the interviews.
And you got a promotion yesterday to partner.
Well deserved.
I was going to say, about time, other partner, right? Camille Vasquez, Ben Chu. Just saying. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So well-deserved promotion to partner. Again, Ben Chu jumps in there and says, well-deserved. I mean, it's just the best. It's literally the best. I love their relationship. It seems like a really great team over there. Talked about it before. People are asking what it means to make partner. We'll talk about that. Actually, we'll take a pause here between interviews and let's answer some questions. But yeah, people ask, what does it mean to become partner? You're basically a boss at the firm. If you're an equity partner, you share in the profits of the firm. You're a decision maker in the firm. There's another step to named partner, but it seems like this law firm doesn't really have any more named partners. Chu is not even a named partner, and he may be. Sometimes law firms have longer names, like 20 names that are named partners, but they just go by Brown Rutnick. So, so she's probably not going to have her name on the website or things like that, but they're definitely going to promote her. She's definitely going to be, the superstar rising lawyer type of thing, and well-deserved, as Ben Chu said, which I'm glad he said that as well, because you don't want to take anything away from her. Just say, oh, well, just because we happen to win this case, we had to promote her, or she was getting other offers, so we had to promote her. Well-deserved. She earned it, which I loved to hear. All right, let's get to some questions here. Jordan Pollard, have you seen JD's TikTok and AH's response? I didn't see Amber Heard's response, but I did see his TikTok. Is that something I need to look into? Do we want to hear a reaction to TikTok? April, right. I read Camille made partner. Yes, she did. Big promotion. Somebody also sent me, she's been a lawyer for 10 years, which is almost exactly the same as me. Mine's just over 9. And she's been working for this firm for 4 years. Brad TN, if the judgment isn't a net settlement, JD has to pay Amber $2 million. Does that mean she has to Venmo it right back to him as she receives it? LOL. This is where settlement discussions come into play, but I'm going to hold the answer to this question because in the next interview, they talk about that a little bit. Roger Broom, Amber is simply unremarkable as a public figure, and jealousy of Johnny fuels her spite. Who even knew her face before this trial? No real signature look, personality, or ability. LA Gunn, I heard that AH does not have to pay a bond to appeal as that only applies to cases under $50K, and she has the right of appeal. However, she will probably not be successful. I think the judgment was correct for Johnny. I know there are a lot of jurisdictions you do not have to pay a bond at all to appeal. I don't know what it is here in Virginia. Rob of Law and Lumber talked about this a little bit. So if you guys want to check out his channel or ask him that on one of his chats, but she's definitely going to be able to appeal. She definitely is. I don't see any legitimate reason that she's going to win an appeal yet, but I'll keep looking. Kelly Jansen, can't Elaine at a minimum be sanctioned for her comments about the jury? No, she's not going to be sanctioned for any of these interviews. I don't think. Stacey B, what a respectful interview full of class and facts. I agree with you. Very respectful. Melanie Davis, so glad I turned on notifications for this channel. Love all the content. Thank you, Melanie. 7 jurors versus 1 judge. Do the math at CV is really nice. Thank you, Azam. John Sipe is a new member. And if you check out in the video descriptions, we have membership info. We got members only chats sometimes, members only polls, members only merch, which our merch link is in the video description as well. Nicole Wheeler is also a new member. Thank you for joining. Bev, what's up? Ben was charming in the interviews, as always, and the photos of JD these past few days show how content he is. Good for his legal team. Sorry, good for his team for giving him back his dignity. Gives me insight into the importance of the lawyer-client relationship. Absolutely, no doubt about it. I echo this comment. Brown, Rudnick, Vasquez, let's go. Jenica Bosman, what, if anything, could Elaine have done better in these interviews if she's so locked into a lying client that she has no other angle? Camille and Ben just own these interviews. She could have said, I disagree with some of the rulings. I disagree with the jury's verdict, but I understand why they may have come to that decision because of some of the evidence that wasn't allowed into this case. She could say stuff like that, which is totally fine. She could say a lot of the evidence that came in the UK trial we think would have been relevant to this trial. It was kept out. We are going to appeal based on that. We think the UK outcome should have been allowed in this trial. Whatever, things like that are totally fine. Talk about things you thought should have come in that would have turned the case for Amber Heard. I think that would have been totally fine. And I think it's fine to say public pressure is a real thing. We hope it didn't affect the jury, but it may have. We fear it may have. Things like that. That's totally fine to say things like that rather than being accusatory. Perfect pirouette. Thank you for the super chat. Isa Mello, Johnny's team showed grace, was nice to see. I agree. It was not a nasty chest pumping victory lap. All right, but let's get into the next one. And again, now is where you can listen to the stuff they repeat, which means they really want to focus on that in every interview. They want to make sure we hear that. They want to make sure we know that that's how Johnny feels or that's their stance. So we're going to focus on the things that they repeat. And then we'll also focus on something different, an answering of questions that we really haven't heard answers to yet. So let's get to this next interview.
Yeah, for their first interview.
Uh-oh. What happened there? Let's see if we can fix this. Huh. The video that I had pulled up for the second interview is gone. So I will wait for it to be sent to me again here real quick, and I will answer some more questions. All right. So if you have questions, okay, just kidding. It's already been emailed to me, I guess. Nope, that was the one I already did. So email me the other one. It was like 5 minutes. The one that was like 5 minutes long. Okay. All right, let's get to a couple more questions here. Joe Mendoza, lawyer can get it. Definitely a lawyer you'd really want to know. Inside and out, LOL. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Joe. Johnny's team showed grace. We talked about that one. Azam, missed a chance to thank you during the JD verdict. You mentioned me staying up late. Really appreciate it. You are the only YouTuber I've stayed up all night for live video. Glad you read my super chats. I like the way you say my name. Thank you. All right, let's see if we have it now. Yes, here we go. Let's get back to it.
Camille Vasquez and Ben Chu sitting down for their first interview since the blockbuster verdict that Depp was defamed by ex-wife Amber Heard. Welcome to you both. Camille, let me begin with you. I think the verdict surprised a lot of legal experts. They thought it was a very uphill fight from the beginning for you all. What was the key to victory?
I think the key to victory was focusing on the facts and the evidence, and Johnny's opportunity to speak the truth for the first time. It was 6 years in the making. And I think he was able to connect with the jury and the general public and tell what really happened in this relationship.
Focus on the facts and the law, which intimates that maybe another side didn't focus on the facts and the law. And Johnny was able to connect and resonate with the jury and the general public, which I think is really interesting that she says, because A, that is definitely true, but this is the first time they kind of show General public was also watching, and definitely with Johnny Depp throughout his testimony.
He wasn't in the courtroom for the verdict. What was his reaction when you told him?
He was over
His
the
reaction
moon.
again.
It was like the weight of the world had been taken off his shoulders, and I feel that finally, after 6 years, he's gotten his life back.
He also went on TikTok yesterday thanking his supporters on social media. What role did social media play in this verdict?
My view is that social media played no role whatsoever. This was a decision made by the jury on the evidence presented by both sides. And as Camille said, it was overwhelmingly in Mr. Depp's favor.
All right. So again, another catchphrase. It was overwhelmingly in Depp's favor. But I have a question for you all, and let me know in the comments and in the chat. Do you think social media played a role at all in the outcome of this trial? Ben Chu said no. He thinks it played no role at all. So my question for you all, do you think it played a role at all? And wait, let me answer before you comment. I don't mean did it necessarily influence the jury. Okay? I don't mean that necessarily. I'm not saying did the jury go on TikTok and Twitter and that's why they made their verdict. I'm not saying that. Now you can believe that, and if you think that, then you can put yes in there. But do you think these legal teams watched YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, changed the way potentially they made arguments that potentially had an outcome or an effect on the outcome in this case? Because it's not just the jury that can be affected or that can affect the outcome of the case. The witnesses, the parties, and the legal teams can be affected by social media and in turn have an effect on the outcome of the case. So that's the question I'm asking all of you. Do you think across the board, did it have any effect on the outcome at all? I'm not saying a jury went and got their verdict because they believe somebody on TikTok. I mean the entirety of the process. Witnesses, jurors, lawyers, judge. Did anybody get affected by social media to where it could have affected the outcome? That's what I want to know. And I will come back and scroll through some of these later and see what you all thought. And I will look at the comments for those of you who rewatch and see what you think. Because I kind of think it may have had an effect on the outcome. Again, I don't think the jury was breaking their oath and going and searching this stuff out. But I think across the board, little pieces here and there potentially could have affected the outcome. But I want to know what you all think.
Ms. Heard's lawyers put out a statement yesterday saying the verdict was a setback for women's rights. And they went on to say that it's unseemly and unprofessional for you all to be, quote, taking a victory lap for setting back decades of how women can be treated in the courtroom. How do you respond to that?
I think it's disappointing. We're only speaking about what happened in this case, right? And the facts in this case were overwhelmingly positive for Johnny. And the verdict speaks for itself.
How about the broader criticism?
So she says the verdict speaks for itself like multiple times throughout. So I think she wants to keep saying that. Verdict speaks for itself, overwhelmingly in favor of Johnny. Facts overwhelmingly in favor of Johnny. Everything overwhelmingly in favor of Johnny. Those are some of the points she wants to make sure she drives home. They're also, as you can tell, both of these lawyers are very disappointed in how Amber's team has handled the post-trial media buzz.
Though it's not just from Heard's teams. Victims advocates have argued that the verdict is going to have a chilling effect on domestic violence victims, and it's a blow to the Me Too movement.
I think our response to that is we encourage any victim to come forward. Domestic violence doesn't have a gender.
So you don't
Great
see
answer.
this as a setback to the movement in any way?
Domestic violence doesn't have a gender.
We do not. We believe that the verdict speaks for itself. The facts are what they were.
Verdict
The
speaks for
jury
itself again.
made a unanimous decision based on those facts.
Wait, during your cross-examination, what was your impression of Ms. Heard's impression on the
This is
jury?
good.
I think that her impression on the jury was what it was. I think something that I focused on and we focused on in that cross-examination was using her words against her. And it was very important for us to, every question that was asked was tied to something she had said previously. And I think the jury got to see and the world got to see and hear from Ms. Heard in that relationship on every single topic.
And George,
So what I thought was really great there is first, she said, we focused on, she looked at Ben Chu, just because she was the one asking the questions doesn't mean she was the only one prepping it. And I loved that. I thought that was great that she said we, like the team, worked together. You could tell they were a team that worked together. But she used her own words against her. And if you've been following along with us throughout this entire trial, and you've been following this channel and other trials, I say there's no better way to condemn somebody than with their own words, whether it's a recording, a prior statement, whatever it may be. Using someone's own words against them is the best way to handle it. And it works both ways. I said the same thing about Amber's lawyers. If they can use Johnny's words against him, that's the best way to condemn Johnny. So I think that is great that that's exactly what her plan was throughout cross-examination. I think that's why a lot of us loved the cross-examination and why that reaction video got so much interest, because people were very enthralled with the way that she exposed Amber using her own words.
I think there was a real contrast. Johnny took ownership of a lot of things, and it seemed at times, and perhaps
another part they wanted to drive home, Johnny took ownership, made concessions, Amber did not.
it came through to the jury that she had an answer for everything, and she wasn't taking accountability for anything. And I think that made a difference.
Heard's lawyer.
A lot of you said that. My wife said that. A lot of lay people said that. She had an answer for everything. They argued with everything. She didn't admit anything. They had a big problem with that. And I think that was exactly their
They
plan.
say she plans to appeal the verdict. She doesn't have the money to pay for the judgment. And you all have said that the goal is not to impoverish Ms. Heard. Is it possible where we could see a settlement where she forgoes the appeal in return for Mr. Depp waiving any monetary damages?
Well, George, we obviously can't disclose attorney-client communications, but as Mr. Depp testified, and as we both made clear in our respective closings, this was never about money for Mr. Depp. So this was about restoring his reputation, and he's done that.
So that was a very interesting question and answer that we can pick up a lot from. They asked, could there be a settlement where the monetary stuff is waived and Johnny and Amber maybe waives her appeal and Johnny gets the win in the court of public opinion and the court of law, even with no money? And he said, I can't disclose attorney-client privilege conversations, but Johnny testified and we said in our closing, it's not about the money. So could we have a shock where they actually waive this monetary amount of the verdict? I would be very surprised if they just waived it altogether. But somebody asked earlier, are they going to make Johnny pay the $2 million and her pay him back? It's most likely that there will be some kind of agreement or settlement, even if it's post-appeal, where Johnny's not going to send her money and have her send that money right back to Johnny. So this is the settlement discussions that are already happening post-trial. They're clearly talking to Johnny about it because they said there are some attorney-client privilege conversations happening there. So let's keep an eye out to see if there is some kind of settlement that Amber pays a lot less money than we potentially may expect.
So you're not disclosing any privileges, but it sounds like that's something that could be on the table, but it's up to Ms. Heard.
Again, we have to be careful what we say, but this was about Mr. Depp's reputation. That was what it was about for him.
Your life has changed a lot in the last several weeks. You got made partner this week. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Both
much.
of you have also become something of social media stars. How has it changed? What does it feel like?
It's been surreal and if I'm being honest, a bit overwhelming. But if I can be an inspiration to young women that want to go to law school and study and work hard, then it was all worth it.
You made the choice to go to Virginia for this trial. How much of a difference did that make?
I think Virginia was a good venue for some legal and other reasons, and it has a fabulous court system, tremendous judges and fair juries, and I think this the evidence was listened to carefully on both sides by the jury, and again, it came overwhelmingly in Johnny's favor.
Ms. Heard.
Tremendous judges and fair jurors, like total opposite, polar opposite to how Elaine explained the process in Virginia. They hated the Virginia venue. Johnny Depp's team loved the Virginia venue. Now, this is kind of what it sounds like to hear the winner and the loser discuss a trial sometimes publicly, just so you know. I hesitate to think that they would have said the same exact thing if they would have lost, but maybe they would have.
Did win on one count of defamation. Will you be appealing that?
Again, I think it's premature to say, but if you look at the context of the verdict, it was a total win for Johnny.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much, George.
Well, hey there, GMA.
All right. So interview number 2 done. We are going to get to some more questions here in a second, but overall, a lot of grace, a lot of honesty, a lot of we team court system, judges, jurors, a lot of positive encouragement from these lawyers to everybody involved. So to me, great interview. As people are saying, very classy, very professional. I would agree. All right, let's get to some questions. Emily B, wasn't the UK trial decided based on the lie she donated the money and therefore had no financial motive to lie? I don't think it was based off of that, but they did discuss that. I did an entire video. If you want to check it out, the UK trial versus the US trial. So check out that video and get in the comments and we can kind of talk more about that specifically on that video. SPW, Peter is going live, Court TV later tonight. Yes, I will probably go live right after the interview concludes. So you can check me out, my thoughts, and we can talk about it right after. Melanie Chambers, loving your content. So glad I started following. It's been so interesting hearing the legal side to evidence and procedures. Also with Black Belt Barrister, as I'm from the UK. Yes, I was with Black Belt Barrister on Andy's show, Popcorn Planet. If you want to check out that video, we do discuss some of the differences between the UK and US trial. Little Rascal, the important message is speak the truth, don't embellish, be authentic, and you will be able to speak your experiences and be believed. This trial proves that. Much healing to all who face this journey. Love the channel. Thank you. Thank you, Little Rascal. Great comment there. Doug D, honestly, SM showed what was being shown in court, social media. For the most part, I think there were certain things that maybe weren't legit or weren't fair, but the lawyers talking about on YouTube, yes, we were just showing what was in court. Karen G, question was if social media had an effect on the verdict. He said no. I think legal teams use it as a resource and rebuttal witnesses came to testify because of it. I agree. And those rebuttal witnesses, it was clear that social media had an effect on them. And in my opinion, rebuttal was so incredibly strong for Johnny Depp, was a slam dunk for Johnny Depp, that I absolutely believe it could have had an effect on the outcome. That's why I think personally, social media potentially did have an effect on the outcome. Not that the jurors violated their oath. It's a different question. Kit Kat is a new member. Thank you. Hazel Angus. I'm actually thinking Manson really is an abuser and that Amber was cynically aligning herself with his victims if they are victims. Wouldn't be the first time she allegedly stole a victim's story. Interesting. Haven't looked into the Manson case yet, but I think I am going to. LA Gun. If not for social media and the lawyers on social media, we would have not learned the truth from mainstream media, allowing them to spin it. JJ Doe. When will we know if an appeal is approved / denied? It'll be a while. It'll be a while, but we'll keep track of it. So just hit the reminder bell here and subscribe to this channel, and you'll know when it happens. We're almost to 120,000 subscribers, which is wild. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Tell your friends, hit that subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, go over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Get us to 120 and beyond. Excellent job keeping us informed on the legal part of the trial. Made watching it better understanding. Thank you, Carrie Barton. Arbor Board. SM didn't change the jurors, but I would hope the legal teams were watching and considering popular opinion on how they approach topics or how they present themselves. SNR. Maybe social media had an effect, but social media was also affected by the trial. I agree. We based decision on same facts presented to the jury at trial. It's a good point. Miss Arugula Ragu. As an attorney, at the very least, you'd want a finger on the social media pulse. I agree. Like it took a craftsman to notice the evidence related to the bed. I agree. Fish Sauce. I really love how JD's legal team can stick to the facts and not speak about speculation of what could or could not be. I don't think we could speculate on what the jury did with their time away from the court. I agree, but they also speculate on, what the jury believed and what they saw and what they heard, but they're basing it off of evidence and outcome and testimony. So I understand, but there is an element of speculation in all of this. Ali Osmond. YouTube helped JD's team with Lumber Vid and Runkle Pick Vid. Lions Bane. People seem to forget that Johnny Depp has never been arrested or part of a criminal process that makes him officially an abuser. Amber H. has. Ron Berner. Social media was the planted bloody glove, didn't change opinions, just made it more obvious. Also, jurors on social media would also see loss in UK, two-way street. I agree with you, Ron. And it's the same thing with some of this evidence, like the Jerry Judge evidence. Everybody wanted it to come in. They thought it was going to be so good for Johnny. Seems like the judge in the UK thought it was bad for Johnny. So maybe it helped Johnny that some of this evidence didn't come in. You never know how a jury's going to react. Everything pretty much is a two-way street. just like Amber testifying and Johnny testifying. Some was good, some was bad. Who could use it better? It's a two-way street. So I think it's a great point. Fish sauce. Your perspective on law is the only thing I can take seriously. What are your opinions of the UK trial being reopened? So I did an entire video on this. Like I said, we will post a link in the description or in the chat of this video so you can see the UK versus US, where we went into this in detail. I think it's going to be very difficult to reopen unless they can prove and find actual wrongdoing or bribery or something on the part of that judge. Just being at fancy dinners with other hoity-toity people, I don't think is enough to reopen it potentially, but I went into detail in that other video. Janika Bosman, I'm curious if you think if you and your father were hired by Amber Heard, if you could have given her a better outcome. I am Team Depp, but I like your unbiased mind. I do think so. I mean, I hate to say, oh, we're better lawyers than them, or I would have done so much better than them. We'll never say things like that. I would just say I would have had a different strategy. And I've talked about it a lot. It would have been a much simpler strategy. Again, I would never ask my client to lie. So if Amber Heard said this is the truth, then you can't say, no, say this. But based on everything I saw with the pictures in her testimony, if she would have stuck to one or two times of abuse, the headbutt that Johnny admitted, the grabbing the arms and moving her, that he said was accidental or he said was just to get her out of the way, she could have, in her opinion, felt like it was abuse. That wouldn't be far-fetched. A lot of victims have differences of opinion of what actions are with their abusers. Like they think it's abuse. The abuser doesn't think it's abuse. And she actually has the pictures to correlate some bruising at least and some bruising on her arm. I think that much more simple defense, that's her constitutionally protected opinion that she's a victim. That would have been our strategy as lawyers. I think it would have had a better chance at success. No guarantees, obviously, but that's how I would have looked at it differently, potentially. Takai 37. I think the best option would be to keep AH in debt of that money, but don't enforce the payments as long as she doesn't harass him. Interesting. Loves Yeshua. Why do you think Elaine wasn't accompanied by her other lawyers? I think that's left to our speculation. Why didn't her team go with her? Why didn't anybody support her? I don't know. Alexandra Bustos is a new member. Down by the coast. Will the 24th be televised? Rob from Law and Lumber said no because it's a cattle call, which means tons of cases are going to run through that same day. And it's just going to be a quick 30-minute thing. So we'll have to just report on it afterwards. Maybe we'll check out if anybody from, like DUI guy or Uncle or Rob or James from court, if any of them go and tweet about it, we'll get some info that way. But I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it afterwards. I took what Ben said about the attorney-client privilege as a jab to Elaine, because her saying Amber Heard doesn't have the money is attorney-client privilege and not hers to tell. Marissa Esposito, if Johnny waives the money, it will probably be because of her daughter's well-being and not because of Amber herself, I think. Beverly Alford, Peter, regarding your question, I think Team JD definitely saw your cross video as well as Rob's broken bed video. Well, thank you for the compliment. But I think that they saw a lot of things that potentially affected their strategy in the case. Tina Lewis, can you mention Black Belt Barrister petition on change.org to try and get the UK trial re-examined? I just did. I mentioned it. And you can post it in the chat if you want. I don't have the link to it, but feel free to post it in the chat. And I'd like to talk to him about it potentially at some point if we can get on a video together. Azam, I think legal team definitely watch social media, law, and lumber. That's Rob. Bev Stroud, social media definitely used by Amber Heard's team. So many changes after the comments posted. I agree. I don't feel like JD's team so much. They had a solid game plan. I think they both probably did. Julia Farm, longtime viewer, first time super chatter here. Thank you for your continued insight and professionalism on this case. Unlike some lawyers, cough, Elaine. Thank you, Julia. Dean K. It really seems like the legal teams really mirror their clients. Is it normal for the client to pick attorneys with similar personalities? JD came across really candid and honest. Love the channel, by the way. I don't know if I would say that Ben and Camille have the same personality as Johnny. If you want to say like honesty or integrity and things like that, I do think clients pick lawyers based on that. But I don't think they want somebody necessarily with the same personality as them. I think they usually want their lawyer to be pretty aggressive and pretty unafraid and unabashed and be able to, do what they need to do, whether or not that is their personality. All right, a couple minutes here and then I've got to take off for my next appointment. Minnesota Mickey. I heard on a news show that they have taken her visa away in the UK and Australia. Not sure how true. How can we find out? I have also heard many times over that she is being investigated for perjury in both those jurisdictions. So I'm not positive, but that would make sense. All right, I'm going to scroll up and kind of see what you all thought about social media. Then we will answer a few more questions on our way out. So most people said no here, especially early on. They don't think social media had any effect on the outcome. Then a lot of people said, I feel like the legal teams used it, which could have affected the outcome. The rebuttal witnesses, a lot of people said. Absolutely it did. Some people said, yes, definitely. Exactly how you explained it. For sure. No way. Yes. So some split decisions here on whether or not social media affected the outcome of this case, which is what I expected, especially with kind of the convoluted or longer explanation or definition that I gave. Renee Clark, what happens on the 24th? That's when the judge is going to enter the final judgment, I believe. But that's not when she's going to decide on attorney's fees. That's going to be a future hearing. That's more interesting to me than what happens on the 24th. I don't think it's going to be very exciting. MJ Rising, cancel your appointments and chill with us. Hey, I just did that for the last 45 minutes and another 5 minutes. So it's been fun, but I do have a couple appointments I have to get to. Gannicus 2, I have a really interesting depo this afternoon. AH's entire legal strategy seemed very unfocused and, to be honest, inept at times. I wonder if she could get an appeal based on poor legal representation. Very, very unlikely. I would say no way. Bally, when the social media hashtag just for Johnny and Amber Heard is an abuser were repeatedly brought up in the trial by Heard's teams, that was key. And that's a great point. Social media was literally used in the trial. I think we were all talking about outside social media, but there's no doubt social media affected the verdict because multiple experts and witnesses testified about it. Great point. Torgo the White, interviewer, what was your general state of mind during the trial? Camille, iron within, iron without. Good coverage came from Riquetas. Awesome. Thank you, Torgo the White. Emily B. Jurors are the public. Social media is a huge gauge on what the public is thinking. That's what I always say about you all here in the chat. This is social media, right? I think you are a cross-section of society. You do represent potential jurors. I've always said that from literally day one on this channel. So I obviously think, I thought this was a tough case from Johnny from the jump, but when it was 97% in favor of him, I started feeling more and more confident he was going to win this case because I do trust the overall consensus of your opinions. Yeah, everybody has a little different opinion and diversity of thought, and that's all good and perfect. But the bottom line, a lot of you came to the conclusion different ways, but you still seem to come to the same conclusion in this case, and so did the jury unanimously. Elmer Sy, I think it's the other way around. Social media reflects the outcome instead, not affects it. Thanks for all the great streams. Thank you, Elmer. But social media was ahead of the verdict, I would say. Yaramaz O. Cardensier is a new member. Awesome. All right. We are going to wrap it up here, but set it. I don't know if the video is up yet for you to set a reminder, but subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because tonight after Ben Chu's interview on Court TV, probably around 8:30, 8:45, something like that, we are going to come back, react to that, talk more about this case, talk more about the appeal, talk more about, I didn't get to get into Camille making partner as much as I would have liked to in this video. So let's talk about it more in the next video, what it means to make partner, how you get there, how it's different in a big firm and a small firm. What is the normal timing track to make partnership in these kinds of firms? How long has she been there? How long has she been a lawyer? We'll talk about all that as well tonight at 8:30. Thank you all so much for being here. Hit the like on the way out, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to our page. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter right here at Tragos Law. Get into the comments there. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you still enjoy this Johnny Depp, Amber Heard content. I'm out of here. Thanks you all for being here.